Okay, here we go. My name is Cheryl. My son is here and he's going to be helping me. We organized a few JPEGs together, and these are all for educational purposes only. What we're going to be discussing today is the Stairway to Heaven. It is This is the angel of grief. I absolutely adore these statues of weeping angels. Nothing like Doctor Who weeping angels, but these are still weeping angels. My son liked that. He's smiling. Okay, we have had a passing in the family or in friendship, and we are expecting a few in family to disappear from the face of the earth and into heaven in the next few days. People do not understand why I am adjusting well to it. It's quite simple. I have been to heaven. I had an accident years ago. But let's first discuss the stairway to heaven. Aaron, honey, would you please? When I was around 12 years old, maybe a little bit younger, Led Zeppelin came out with a song called Stairway to Heaven. We sang it in choir class, and all the guitarists were running around looking for all of the finger graphs and the chordings so that they could learn to pick it properly. Go ahead, babe. When my grandmother passed and she went on to be with the Lord, I do call it passing, by the way, not what I've been told to call it. Passing as if going through a door. Eric Clapton had a small child fall from a balcony, and he wrote this great song in memory of this child. And just by chance, it was the same time my grandmother passed. And so between that song and I Bowed on My Knees and Cried Holy, that was the total summary of how often, every time I heard those two songs, I just would think of and be grateful for my grandmother. I didn't mourn them. I was grateful for what they had deposited into me to make me who I am today. Go ahead. Thank you, son. Now, people say the stairway of heaven started with Jacob, and it is only seen in Jacob's ladder, where he, after he had stolen the birthright from Esau, had been removed from the family to save his life, and he fell asleep with his head on a rock, and the angels were walking up and down a stairway or a ladder. Go ahead, babe. Actually, how they celebrate it now is through the prayer cloth or the talit. If you lay this completely flat out with the four wings, one on each corner of the north, east, west, and south poles, you actually have the striping, which symbolizes the rungs of Jacob's ladder, and each of them are a pole or a foot to Jacob's ladder. And you ascend into heaven through prayer, through Jacob's ladder at this point. One of the beautiful parts about this is not just is it a talit for prayer cloth, it is the wings. The healings are on the wings. And it is said that the God of universe, while creating the fabrics of the universe, had the four poles, and he wished for man, if he desired to understand salvation, to slip through the eastern or the western pole, that he may come to know God at his greatest point. And so the talit is really the outward symbol now of Jacob's ladder, which is the stairway to heaven. Go ahead, babe. Now, this is a constant picture of the stairway to heaven, and I'm going to tell you how I came into an understanding of the stairway to heaven. It was about 20 years ago, and I had had a child, and my last child, he was sick, but not as sick as my first child before, my one child before him. That's his full brother. And I'd had an accident when I was expecting this boy. And he's okay. He's the one flipping the pages for me right now. And okay, Aaron, you silly goose. Okay, but what happened was I had an accident with a roof. I was expecting him, and when I fell, I lost 6 inches off of a bone, and it took 7 surgeries to rebuild that bone. But during the seventh surgery, I was awake. I accidentally woke up on the table, and so the orthopedic, while installing the pole, asked the anesthesiologist to really put me under, and he did. What happened then was it took me a long time to wake up. He really put me under. My breathing went very shallow. The nurse and the doctor were panicking. It took a lot for them to get me to wake up. They finally could call my husband in to see how I was doing after the surgery. He was pretty upset because in his eyes, he actually told me point blank, I planned that for him, and I had no right to make him sit and wait in the hospital room. But it didn't matter. What hurt me the most was he wouldn't bring my Bible or my pictures of my children up so that I could recover with those things while he was at home taking care of them. So he left. He was pretty upset with me, but I was still not well. I was really falling under it. So they kept me on a gurney, and they pulled me through the hallways of the hospital to take me to my overnight rooms. And while I was being transported and exchanged over, everything went dark. And at the very end of this darkness was this very bright light. And at this very bright light, there was, I came to a landing, and I knew it was the middle of the steps of the Stairway to Heaven. So I knew that the Stairway to Heaven had 2 flights. And as I entered onto the second flight, the breakway at the second flight, then Jesus walked up to me, and I looked right into his eyes, and the love was intense. I'd never seen or felt that kind of love before, except to look in his eyes. And you change when you see that kind of pure love. And behind him, there were indeed the next flight up, and the angels were transcending up and down by bold golden balls of light. And they just moved up and down, almost like the movie Ghost. Did you ever see that? The movie Ghost, where the balls of light were moving around, and they made you feel or assume that they were angels. Okay, well, that's the way it was. It was. I just knew they were angels. And I said to Jesus, am I dying? And he said, are you dying? I said, I can't die right now. I have 2 boys at home, and I really need to take care of them. I need to protect them and love them. They're disabled, and they really need to be safe. And he says, then you're not dying. And he put his finger on my chest, and he pushed me back into my body as if he were shoving me down the steps. And the pain was tremendous as the soul re-entered the body. I hurt so badly, and I can't forget that kind of pain, and I can't forget the kind of love that was in his eyes. So for years I kept thinking, why didn't I get to transfer all the way up the Stairway to Heaven? Why was I in the middle of the Stairway to Heaven? I thought the Stairway to Heaven was one single flight. So I did my typical studying, and I did my typical praying, and I went through many different type of encyclopedia articles, and I found this one that actually said the Stairway of Heaven is 2 flights high, not one singular flight. The first level, which is man's level, starts at the bottom, and Jesus then meets you in the middle, and mercy is in the middle. So don't think that's not a coincidence, because mercy is in the middle. He meets you in mercy, which is the center of the second flight, and the transition from the lowest level to the mercy level is the shedding of the flesh into this just pure spirit. Then you see Jesus takes you through mercy, and he then ascends with you into the presence of God, which is the highest level of the Stairway to Heaven. So that is what I learned, and that is how I look at funerals. If you go to a Catholic service. They have a session where they are first introducing the spirit. Then they have a section where they are introducing the body into the ground. So they divide it up for technical purposes for us to understand it, that there really is two different flights to the Stairway of Heaven. Most Christians don't know that, but I find it quite interesting that even in our artwork, we don't understand it. But in Judaism, in heaven itself, there's two flights. And heaven is a joyful place. It is not a sad place. So if there's any tears, it's because we are looking at ourselves as human beings, looking for the spiritual experience. But in fact, we are spiritual beings living the earthly, the flesh, the human experience. I just wanted to share that with you as we go off to get ready for another funeral. So God bless you, and keep your eyes on the prize, because that's where Jesus is. He's mercy in the middle of even the stairway to heaven. So God bless you. Thank you, Aaron.